Yes.
Bogdanov, he did it.
Il bought.
He went all in.
Dump it. No! No!
You heard it here first. Bitcoin is going to zero. When it comes out, zero.
Just hold on, bro.
Welcome to another TGH Spaces. We've got a very special guest today, Hatu from TheDAOMaker, the #1 launchpad by ecosystem, market cap, volume, and KYC users. I think this will be a really interesting Spaces because of what has happened recently in crypto in regards to FTX, the void, the gap that has been made by the second largest exchange going bankrupt, and now we're going to see all the other players, the smaller players, maneuver into different positions and change their strategies, and we're going to get a better idea on how long this bear market is going to last and what we can expect in regards to trends and narratives in the near and mid-term.
We're just going to wait for a few more people to join, and then what we'll do is we'll get an introduction into yourself and how you started DAOMaker, and then we'll get to it from there.
Nah, don't worry about the timing. It's like, you know how it is in crypto. I think I have a ton of calls these days at midnight anyways. It's okay.
Do you still work for DAOMaker then?
Yeah, I don't intend on leaving, I've co-founded it, so I intend on staying till, I don't know, perpetuity. No end point.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so what's your position in DAOMaker currently then?
Yeah, in most startups, especially in the early years, there's no specified hat within the co-founding team. Everyone kind of rotates the roles. Whatever's need be and whoever's the most skilled at it would take up on it. But at least what I spend the most time on is managing the biz dev of it, the Launchpad itself, accelerations that we do, the relations that we build. So if you see something launching on the platform, it's a 98% chance the whole process of that went through myself. And a lot of people don't see what happens, this, okay, it's on the Launchpad now. I know a lot of Launchpads are very late stage involved, but we try our best to be involved as early as possible. And then once we get into the details of this call, I'll go into why we get involved so early. But yeah, so that on-ramp process and how we kind of blend them in towards making sure things go well, that's the process that I run.
Yeah, I love that. And what you said there then about how everyone kind of rotates, mixes and matches and fills the gaps, we kind of do the same thing at the Gem Hunters. We sort of, I always have tried to find, and concrete roles and jobs, but sometimes that's impossible when yourself, the space is ever changing, the technology, the innovation, the projects. So those roles have to be flexible, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in most cases, it's not going to be just you or myself. Any startup that's doing well, I mean, you guys are kind of like a startup, right? It's like a business, but you're running it. You built a good platform. That's its own thing. But all the ones that are doing well, the roles aren't rigid, and the team understands that. And this team has become very rigid on, no, I only want to do the X role specified early on. Doesn't really work out because then there's no flexibility. And the whole point of being a startup is that you're nimble.
I absolutely love that. And it's a great point that you made there. So let's dive in then. How did you end up founding DAOMaker? What's the story behind that?
Well, that's an interesting one. So I think I got into crypto almost straight out of my college. In 2017, there was a consulting firm in Korea. It was called Block 72. They were doing a lot of stuff back then. They worked on things like Decentraland, Algorand, and so on. But like a lot of companies in the space, I think they expanded way too much in that bull run, and when the bear market came and the deal flow stopped, they kind of fell. It reminds me of like even the audit firms. There was a very famous one called Hosho back then. For those of you guys, everything was being audited by them. Bear market comes, they blow up. So that was a very common thing back then. Anyhow, so I was managing a lot of the work for on the English side, biz dev and marketing for them. And I kind of realized that was a lot of the work that was being done on the projects anyways. So I figured I could do this myself. And Chris, independently on his own, was doing something quite similar on the platform that he had. But he, at the time, had his own platform. So we figured, by some mechanism, I got to know him. I don't even remember how we met anymore, to be honest. We figured, we could just combine resources and, 1 + 1 could be 3. And and Dao Maker came to be around 2018. But we were a very different company then. Our goal was more SaaS oriented. And I think a lot of startups in the space, even now, are building B2B SaaS like we did back then. But there's just no market for it, right? When you want to build a B2B SaaS, you need an addressable target customer base of hundreds of thousands of companies. Crypto doesn't even have like maybe 100 that can afford a retainer on a month-to-month basis, right? So there was no market for that model. But we knew that the real demand base in this space is in the fintech side, where you can work in some sort of financial element of the space and monetize on that. So we looked at it and we were like, okay, so the exchanges and lenders and the fundraising platforms are doing well. And probably the only ones that have a real cash flow model, at least back then, right? But there were far too many exchanges. There were a lot of lenders. Well, that does blow up now, but at least back then there were a lot of lenders still. And there was only one proper funding platform, which is Coinless, right? So we figured, okay, there's a lot of market opportunity in that, and we should definitely break into this. And there we are. I honestly think the amount of ground we've gained since then to now is substantive, right? We're closing in on almost 1 million users. So I'm pretty confident next cycle we're gonna take a shot at the #1 spot.
That's wow. So I have a follow-up question here. So like you mentioned that the P2P markets for SaaS are really kind of difficult at the moment. I would imagine they are, honestly. What have you guys
B2B markets for SaaS, software as a service, for business to business clients.
I gotcha. Okay. So what have you guys moved into? Sorry, I misheard, but yeah. So what has been your pivot, I guess?
That was early 2018. What we moved into is becoming a fundraising platform.
Yeah.
Around that time.
Can I just say something? Sorry, guys. You mentioned then how you want to be a top, project, top on coin market cap, top launchpad. But you already are the biggest launchpad in crypto. Now, by what margin is DAOMaker the biggest? Is it by far?
I'm gonna be frank, and it's not out of like any kind of like arrogance. I generally do not look at the other launchpads, primarily because the model is very different. There's many, like, there's Polka Starter and I don't know, there's TrustBat and whatever. But the model there was when 2021 kicked off, we kind of had that model too, and I very quickly was like, I want to step away from this. The model there is at the very end of a project cycle, after all the VCs have funded it, they go to the Launchpad and get that last mile exposure to the public. And I realized around end of Q2 21 that this is a horrible model, because a lot of it was just, in the benefit of the VC funds, which were not, if they were doing a great job at accelerating the companies, training them, helping them with HR, giving them proper coaching on how to run a business, giving them proper biz dev, helping them break into IP, figuring out economics for them. But none of that was often being done. But had it been, I would say it makes sense. So we shifted our model back then. That's the distinction point. So we most often, the projects that do really well with us, we are the first money in, the accelerator. We bake them for 6 to 12 months, and then the public gets it. Now, I'm not saying that everything we touch, even this year, has been like that. But if you look back in the last 2 quarters, a lot of other platforms are either just paused or they're not performing well. But I think we had some as good as last year, and the size of their sales went up. While the average size last year was like 200K, it's like 2 million often this year. Bunch of those. And we were able to take away. We were able to take the amounts that VCs would be putting instead of giving out to the public, but the quality of the projects is so much better because a lot of time went into making sure they are product ready when they get to the token point.
Yeah. No, I get that. Just want to say and pick up on a point that you made there about a lot of other launch pads are kind of flaky, if you will. As you said, they kind of come, they have a few good projects, and then you don't hear anything. They either stop or they launch a lot of trash. And I'm finding a lot of investors that are following other launch pads have got wrecked, especially during the bear market. And I have seen that DAOMaker is still launching pretty high quality projects that are performing better than a lot of the other ones. So are you finding that quite noticeably as well?
I do recognize the quality has been good. I think our approach went back to our roots. Remember, I said, we were around since 18, right? We went through the bear market back then too. And we, at that time, only used to have one project a quarter. And so those were some of the best projects in the industry. We had names like Elrond, OMI, the top 100 projects, right? I'm pretty confident this stuff we're working with now that will very soon, once they're fully vested and the market turns around, will break into top 100 or 200 as well. But some of the more aged companies you work with, we go back a few years, we only did one per quarter. And they broke into really high ranks of the industry. And we went back to those roots with this bear market again, where we're doing a lot less. But not that less, I guess one a month, I think, is what we're averaging. But their quality is superb. But we have a lot more scaled up, so we can support in, larger rosters of projects at a time, 3 to 6 at any given moment. So we scale them up much better, which lets us maintain this. I'm not aware of other firms that are maintaining these sort of acceleration programs. We probably got to give more spotlight. So whenever we run an acceleration, maybe we should let the public know. But we, for the time being, keep it all private. We only let people know what's coming out once it's ready for the public sale.
To be fair, I do appreciate that you guys get it ready for market before you guys hype it up. I mean, because most other projects hype stuff up and even potentially list the coin multiple years before it's market ready. And so I think having it be market ready before you share is actually better for the protocol. Just for long term. I mean, not only for you guys, but also for the protocol that's actually launching. It's way better to get legitimate excitement around an actual product than the potential of 1 in 2 years that then just gets destroyed after VCs dump it.
Yep, I know, I'm on page with you for that. It's just that we went through a very torrid bull run, right? And when the markets are very frothy, it almost makes sense for the startups to kind of get ahead of others. But it's in markets like this when you find real quality stuff. But that's the positive side of it, right? People are pretty sad and unhappy these days, but this is the time they're gonna find the best things. They just that's what capitulation does to you, though. You don't realize that now is the best time to find stuff.
Agreed. Now is the best time, not only just because prices are down, but also because the only people left are the people that actually care and are building stuff that matters generally. And so you're not going to get the frothy, bullshit memes as much now that are just getting it pumped and dumped. You're going to get stuff that actually is getting built as infrastructure, which better time than ever.
You hit the nail on the head there. I was just surprised by the quality of stuff that I'm getting to see, but I think in part there's a lot less noise now, so there's enough time to actually notice the things that are actually really well established in terms of quality. There's enough companies that we have behind the scenes that are like north of 1 million users prior to even considering to do a token. That's a huge positive element, right? Which we weren't seeing in the bull run, surprisingly. So only the people really actually want to be in Web3 are pushing things still forward. And you actually pay a little attention, people might notice them.
I mean, from a personal standpoint, I've definitely noticed. I've seen quite a lot of building recently, just from people that it almost got a little bit of a fire lit under their ass from the last 2 weeks. That we are here for a reason, and it's the point is to make a better system than before. And I see a lot of people building right now, which is really, really good to see. And I think as long as you pay attention, that's you'll be doing good in the next couple years. And so to kind of like go into that, what kind of things are you guys looking at right now with the market? What do you think? What kind of products have you seen? I know you can't share like actual names or anything, but like what kind of stuff is being built?
It's, to be honest, all over the place in some sense. In the bull cycle, we had these waves of narratives, right? I can like name them from the top of my head. So we kicked off with the 2020 DeFi summer, and that rolled forward into the first phase of the NFT bull run, which rolled forward to the GameFi bull run, which went to the Layer 1 summer of 21, which then went into the Metaverse summer. we had these. It's true though, right? We had these
I
waves.
can remember all of this. This is hilarious. Yeah.
If you, oh yeah, go ahead.
I just going to say that you brought back so many memories because you literally just said it exactly how it went down, and I got a massive smile on my face listening to you. Carry on. Are you there, Hatu?
Oh, I think I dropped out from. Yeah, no, I'm just had a flash of all those projects that went through those hype waves. What was interesting in them, right? The narratives are great, right? They give facilitation to startups, but what wasn't good was if you were building even a really bad DeFi company in summer 2020, no problem. Max coverage, everyone's all about you. You could build a really good one in summer 21 and no one cares all of a sudden. That's like not a great environment. So that's the problem of narrative cycles we get in a bull run. But right now, yeah, it's all over the place. I think Web3, a lot of people, there was a lot of mockery from mainstream media on the concept of Web3, but it does make sense, right? People do want to own what they consume. This is that's one of the empowerment elements of crypto, right? So there's a lot of companies that we're seeing. I guess we're living up to the name. I'm gonna explain this. Our name is Dao Maker, right? So we're seeing companies that are established in Web2 that make money and they want to tokenize, and we facilitate more than ever facilitating them in building compliant legal DAOs where they can feed revenue from their mainstream business and their customer base can get a stake in this. And I do think even in the bear market, these companies are going to be unaffected. They're going to do really well. And this is probably what we're focusing this most on in pipeline because they do make money and they are very likely to be unaversive to whatever the bear market conditions are because they're more aligned with whatever mainstream sector they're in for revenue rather than trading within crypto.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, you're actually trying to get products that will be evaluated based on their revenue and actual like utility versus just speculative trading, which is a really good pivot for markets in my opinion, like just from maturity standpoint. I assumed it was going to happen eventually, but it's good to hear that it's like that's an actual goal you guys have. Not
just the goal. I think we did one that was really well. Skeb. that company wanted to do an IPO. You know, it's important to understand one great thing of crypto tokenization is unless you're in the US and you are okay and comfortable going through the IPO process for the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange, then you have access to very liquid equity markets. But if you're living in most other countries, right, the equity markets are far less liquid than what a random meme coin gets in crypto. So for a lot of startups, it makes a lot of sense to tokenize rather than securitize. And that wave of Web3 knowledge / confidence that's spread in the last year helped get that message through to them. You gotta remember, a lot of people think of NASDAQ as like, oh yeah, the Apples and the Microsofts and so on. Most of the stocks going there are not valued anywhere close to that when they IPO. And if you leave the US, a lot of the IPOs happen at valuation ranges of tens of millions, not even 100 plus. So, like I said, we did one called Skeb. They intended to do an IPO in the Japanese market. Instead, they opted for tokenization. Their tokens done really well despite their times because they make money and they feed it into the DAO, which then votes to buy it back. So, unaffected by how crypto is. They just make money on the anime market. And for all I know, the anime market is doing really well, for the time being at least.
You are correct.
Anime fan base here.
I mean, that's actually really clever. Just like make the infrastructure and then make the revenue off the infrastructure and don't do any funny business beyond that. I don't know. It seemed like a lot of the going back to those, the hype cycles that you mentioned, the narratives, a lot of them were based on like flywheel mechanics versus actual revenue. And
There's a lot.
I don't know. It's good to see people make actual like protocols based on revenue and not just random inflation and flywheels and backed by nothingness.
In all fairness, they're not even protocols. A lot of these are just effective businesses that are kind of tokenizing.
That's their way to put it. A business on chain.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, a lot of the companies in crypto, even when they were going in gaming, were digital products. They still the core business model relied on trading. Right? How did Axie make its money? On the trading of NFTs. But this is a game. It was making money on its business model relied on trading. So a lot of the businesses that were built in crypto, even if they sprung into new genres, they were not an exchange or DeFi. But their business model somehow always cored around making money off trading. But with the interest that's coming in Web3, where companies make money and they want to build a DAO to push that money into that DAO, we get companies that are not affected by crypto bear market because their business model doesn't rotate around some form of trading. And that's, pretty good for the market as an overall. We get a lot more diversity. It's gonna get much better from here.
I love that, honestly, because that is a huge sign of maturation. That the market isn't pricing something on trading alone, but which is pretty. That's a lot different than the last 2 years that I've been in here. Because last 2 years, every single token I've invested in has almost entirely been based off of speculation and not off of actual numbers or anything.
Well, Keegan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, exactly what you said then. There's been a lot of hype-driven narratives. But what I want to know is, isn't that going to be where most of the money is? And I know that hype-driven narratives aren't natural and organic, but that's crypto 101, isn't it? And are we still going to see these hype, bubbles, these hype cycles, these new narratives coming in? And isn't that going to affect, obviously you guys are legitimate, you're looking for good projects. Isn't that going to affect the user base on your end? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Remember what I said is that, the good thing, if there's a narrative, we align with it. But you got to understand, narrative cycles don't just exist in crypto. They exist in equity markets too. There's an entire economics Nobel award that is given to a thesis called narrative economics. So aligning with narratives is something companies have been doing for a long time. And it's nothing new with crypto. It predates that. In fact, crypto there was a point in 2017 when blockchain was a narrative itself. So I remember there was an iced tea company in Long Island, New York. It's quite close to me. It was like 2 roads down from me. That changed its name from I think something like Long Island Blockchain Iced Tea, and the stock pumped 400%. So we don't just have degens in crypto. We have them in the equity markets as well. Okay. And just to give you an idea, blockchain itself was a narrative for equity companies, right? And that never goes away. Narratives are going to be part of every market cycle, every market economy, in tokens or equity. But what I'm saying is, in the bear market, what we get is there are no narratives. So we just get to see, okay, what's actually a good company? I mean, what is actually making money by a revenue model? And that's only right now.
True. You don't really get to see that. It's kind of weird. You don't get to actually see who is sound in the midst of all the hype, because it's all covered by the fact that people are buying out of speculation versus actual revenue. But now is when you can see, okay, this is where the actual money flow is going, and when you can actually start to pay attention to what's actually good. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Do you guys have any ideas, like in the bear, is there any narratives during a bear? Is that really a thing? Or do you guys just kind of go with whatever looks good to build?
I think if we look back to previous cycles, in the 2018 to 19 bear cycle, we did have this mini boom sort of sharding layer ones. That was a thing. It was apparently a big thing. And that was a narrative. Didn't last too long, but that was the thing. I think in this bear cycle, I mean, we got to remember, we've been in a pretty strong downtrend for almost a year now. Yet we had this breakout of move to earn, a huge breakout of move to earn, right? That was a narrative that built into it. So yeah, that does happen. And I'm confident over the next year or so, we're going to see more narratives. But on the broader sense, there are going to be months, maybe even quarters without any narrative. And at that point, if we go to the core of it, right? Because so many crypto companies trade at, like, in a concept of, broader sense, at low market caps. 100 mil is like a pretty high market cap. We don't actually get to the point where real revenue models that grow exponentially become a focus point. But that's what we are looking at right now, right? I guess I mentioned to you that anime company that we're working with, they're growing 10% every month for the last 3 years without pause, right? That's the kind
You just
of
say
stuff
10% a month?
Yep, 10% a month, every month. That's exponential growth, right?
I was going to say, yeah, that adds up quick.
And that adds up very quick over the course of years. It adds up significantly. And they started around early 2018, and now they crossed almost 3 million users, right? And they're maintaining that. Now that 10% is 300K a month. It's a big deal. We're working with one right now that it's called Atlas Navi, and they're working on a completely different model. And the concept of to earn is changing too, right? For most of the bull run, whenever there was a to earn mechanism, it was through some NFTs. You buy the NFTs, they give you some yield, and you, I don't know, sell the yield basically. Right now, people are, there's businesses that are working on something different. They're basically building a user base and then providing, some sort of consumption in it. Consumption, right? That's the word I was looking for. The one I gave you for the car company, for example, you drive it and you earn in it. But that doesn't come from an inflation or some NFT. They allow you to purchase car insurance from it. They have a lot of data. Are you a safer driver? They're monitoring all that data while you're using that app. It's like Google Maps, but different. If you're a safer driver, insurance company will give you a discount. So it's a value for you. You use the app, you get a discount on insurance. They get commission from the insurance company, and they feed that into the community pool to the users on top. Business model. See, now we're finally getting that.
I was gonna say that's like a legitimate on-chain business model, like versus just random inflationary mechanics. Wow. No, that's actually really cool. Because that can expand to a lot of different sectors. I mean, it's basically decentralizing the. Yeah, I don't even know how to phrase this. This is really cool. Sorry, I'm kind of at loss for words because I was hoping this would happen soon in the bear, and it's actually happening.
Yeah, it is a very clever business model. It matches all sides of the market. Suppliers want it, insurance guys. They want to provide insurance to people who are safer, but with valid data. Blockchain validates data for you. There you go. And for the customer, if you know you're a very safe driver, good track record, validation of that is a bit tough though, right? You can't just go to them like, I drive very safe, believe me. Doesn't work that way. But now there's an app that's building it on chain, and there you go. Insurance companies will give you a discount. And the app makes a portion of that money and actually lets you own a piece of that profit it makes on top. That's Web3.
I was gonna say that's a whole nother level beyond just like owning stocks. You're actually owning the functionality of what's existing. But because like a stock is like, okay, I don't know, it's different than a stock because a stock is just like the representation of what something is speculated to be versus the actual revenue generation. At least in my experience, a lot of it's still speculative. And so no, it's like actually really good to see an actual revenue-based price model because that's what we should be aiming for.
I've got a good question now that we're on the whole revenue side of things. With everything that's happened over the last few months, from Luna to Celsius, and now with what we've had with FTX, is DAOMaker in a safe place where you've tied into any of these platforms? Has your balance sheet been affected by any of this?
No, not at all. We had no exposure to any of these. And what's pretty good is that while we remain compliant for regulatory purposes, we don't take custody of anything. So I think a lot of people will move on chain. Well, they have actually. If you look at exchange outflows, they're at numbers that we've never seen before, and they're gonna look for participation opportunities, on chain. And I expect we're gonna get a lot more growth out of this, if anything else, because it's a non-custodial platform. You own your assets in your wallet, and people can see the value of that now.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, go on. Just using because like you said, you have custody of your own stuff. You guys aren't taking custody of people's assets and then giving options for them. They just hold them, and your protocol allows for the optionality. It's a nuance, but it's a really important one that obviously has been highlighted in the last 2 weeks. That people need to really pay attention to, I think, and moving forward, like completely.
And there's also a massive space now that's opened with obviously the second largest exchange going down and a few more protocols. And there's a lot of other, damage that's been done that we don't even know the full extent yet, do we? So, if you guys were not tied into any of this, then obviously that is going to make you stronger and put you in a better position moving forward. And I know things are tough now because we're in the midst of a bear market. And I do want to ask you as well, eventually, during this interview, what your opinion is on the market. Are we going to see, I know it's a hard question, but I think there's a lot of people in here now who are sort of wondering, are we going to see lower prices? Is there going to be a capitulation period? What's your thoughts, Hatu, on the sort of market at the moment? Do you think we'll see lower prices? Do you think it's going to be a long winter? Or do you think we'll finally see that capitulation period soon?
That's a tough one, right? There's so many points to this where you could say, well, a lot of the downtrend is probably already there. and people probably are starting to DCA, which I'm seeing a lot of people do. But from a macro point, it's very tough because crypto is so correlated with the equity markets for the past 2 years that it depends purely on what the Fed's going to do. And to a very large degree, no one knows what they're going to do, right? We get to know every few weeks based on their meeting statements. So in one segment, we are at the mercy of what the Fed's doing. That's one part. But it's quite likely that they're done with the rate increases that we've seen. But maybe it's not that much more left to go, right? Before they collapse the mortgage economy within the US. That's one part. And then another element is within crypto itself, where the forced liquidations happen. And the unfortunate thing is, I don't think that's over. There's news today that one of the largest miners within the US is going bankrupt. A lot of these companies hold massive amounts of Bitcoin, which if liquidation proceeds begin for bankruptcy, they don't have any option. They have to sell them. And there are a lot of these miners that are going illiquid. Energy prices just sky high. BTC prices are at, multi-year lows. Not a great combination if you're a miner. And miners are some of the largest whales of BTC holdings. So they're going to be forced to sell that off. That's one side of this, right? And just so happens that a lot of the lenders, their liquidations haven't even begun yet. That's still pending. Then comes Genesis also. So there's a lot of people / companies that may want to hold their assets because they believe they're very low, but they're going to be forced to sell them off. That's what we saw with 3 Arrows trying to liquidate to maintain their margin. But they had to sell it off regardless at a loss until they, had nothing left. And we're going to see that with mining firms, with lending firms. But the other part is these bankruptcy liquidations, based on once the court hearings begin and we get a bit more clarity, could last years and years. So I think there'll be a lot more clarity on the direction of how the liquidation of the bankrupt miners and lenders will happen in maybe a couple more months. We'll get to know whether it's going to be more like Mt. Gox, where it's going to take 10 years for them to sell off anything, or we'll get to know that it's going to be something more rapid, in which case things could get pretty turbulent. But if you look at, if you just zoom out from the people who are being forced to sell, how things are moving, look at the bright side. Like BlackRock's getting into crypto, Fidelity's getting into it. This stuff hasn't even plugged in yet. It's due to plug in sometime around Q2 next year. There was always a call for big institutions coming in the market, and that they're all coming at this point, right? They're literally at the gate. So we're in this brutal downtrend, which I think has not fully played out yet because of all the pending liquidations. I don't know if it's been priced in yet.
No, I appreciate that it's a hard question, and I didn't want to put too much on you there, but there's a lot of people in here sort of wondering, and I think you did a really great job answering that. So I want to ask another question now that's sort of tied into what you just said then, and that is, what are your thoughts on finding fundamentally strong projects during this market? What are the best ways? What are the things people should be looking for right now?
So I think the transparency is going to be one of the most important things, especially in the downtrend. That's a statement for both startups themselves and people who are looking into the startups. So founders who want to gain confidence and build communities, the best way is going to be as transparent as possible. For the communities, you can actually see how the business model plays out in the transparency reports that startups publish. We published a report yesterday that we sent out to pretty much anyone who signed up on the platform, which showed transactions of buybacks that happened and that were fed into staking programs for the entire previous quarters to show here's the business model in action, and you can validate on chain. And this is what's going to be necessary. I think the companies that are doing well, if you think on a long scape of it, right, cash flow eventually becomes important. A lot of people that talked about blockchains that kind of had useless tokens like Atom. They're coming into conversation where they are feeling they need to have some sort of cash flow. And now they're discussing how to use MEV. Their governance, portals are more active than ever before, how to generate money for the token. It's always going to break down to that. A year or two, maybe people will be a bit more generous and ignore. But in the end, for every token, it comes back to how is this thing making any money? And that's what you got to see, transparency on cash flow.
Yeah, I think you got a great point there. And I also remember back in 2017, 18, the tokenomics, the fundamentals of new projects that were launching was so much weaker than the stuff that was launching in 2020, 2021. And now I'm starting to feel like exactly what you said there. They're changing again, and people are more focused now on the cash flow, on how to generate revenue, so they can survive and build during a bear market. So one of the things that we're looking for at the Gem Hunt is projects that are building rather than marketing. There's a lot of projects out there that sort of market first, build next, and never actually get round to building. You know how it goes, especially in a bull market. So we're looking for projects now that are building. And are you sort of, can you hint on any projects that you've launched recently that are worth looking into ourselves with our community?
There's one point I want to, touch on there. Eventually, marketing is the core basis of most businesses, right? So it ends up, in most cases, being the primary spend of many companies. It's just when you don't have the product ready and you're burning cash in marketing where it has no purpose. So that's an important part. I know companies that I feel built really good products, but they completely sniffed away from doing marketing. They're like, I'll build and they'll come. Build and they'll come. This phrase is horrible. And if you don't actually get whatever you're making out there, it's never going to really work out. So yes, marketing too much can be problematic, but only if you don't even have a product ready. If you do, that should be your core goal. You need to know your core markets and how to get it in front of them in the most cost-effective way possible. Now, other than that, yeah, like I mentioned, I think a lot of stuff we touched on in the past 2 quarters was quite good because they aligned with the cash flow models. I mentioned to you Skeb, SK, EV, these guys, their source of cash flow is from the anime market. Their entire customer base though is Japanese, and if you were to just go on YouTube and type it up, you'd see how many artists and indie anime developers talk about them. It's like thousands. So it's a good one. There's one that we're, for example, working with at the moment. It's called Atlas. They're ones making money through that insurance data for the car companies. They crossed, I think, 300K users already in 3 months. Something else. There's one we're working with. Also, it's called Primal. It's working on basically tokenizing the one-on-one sessions that athletes provide. So the companies are looking into all kinds of different business models now. But it's kind of on you to look into it. And whenever we're working with a company, we're making sure that what they do on their website give you a very clear business proposition and a very clear token economics proposition. If you go there, you notice a lot of projects we're working with, they will always nowadays have a designated page for tokenomics and a designated page for business memorandum. So you can see what market they're going for, why is that market even worthwhile pursuing, and how does their token benefit or make money from that. That's, in the end, all that really matters. If you're looking into tokens, that's all that matters to you. Why is this market good? How does this company make money? And how do they push money to my token? That's it.
At the end of the day, yeah. I mean, if you're an investor and that's really just, those are the main numbers you want. Like, how is the company making money? And what's the revenue feed? And what's the volume like? And how many users are there? You want to see what the actual company is doing versus just, oh, hey, it has this many tokens and it's worth supposedly this much based on speculation. Like, That's an. I am very curious about the company you've just mentioned. What's the name of it again? Can you say it again?
The automotive one or
Uh,
different?
The Japanese one. What's the company name?
Scab SKEB dot JP.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've saved that now. Thank you. That's really interesting, actually. That they're at, what do you say, 3 million users and they're growing 10% a month?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a
okay,
good thing
that's
with
disgusting.
platforms. That's a good thing with platforms.
Yeah,
Getting
yeah,
hitting your economies of scale.
yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned narratives before. What would you say the hot narratives are now that people should focus on?
To be honest, I don't think the market has a narrative at the moment. I was surprised to see that the whole football World Cup did not cause a narrative sway. I was expecting people to start aping into anything to do with football.
It did for a little while. There was like World Cup ENU, FIFA ENU, and I think for a week it blew up and then just died.
Just for, that's what narratives have come to. They only last 1 week. That's
It's because everyone people see through it, I think, at this point. They're like, oh, hey, everyone's pumping the same thing. Okay, well, now it's dead.
It's like I thought the mem narrative was going to last forever. It went on and on and on. I was like, it's never going to end. And now it's sort of. I mean, I thought the FitFi narrative was going to keep going. I thought we had Steppen, and then a couple more step up moves, and then that kind of cooled down. But I think the market, as you said, there's a lot of scared kind of negativity. People are waiting on the sidelines for lower prices, and I understand to an extent, but I think it's a great time to start dollar cost averaging in. I'm not saying go all in, but I think it's a great time because people would have killed for these prices 9 months ago. You know.
No, I totally get it. But you know what? One important thing, since you brought up the narratives of FitFi and even GameFi, I would say these are still massive markets, and you gotta understand that a lot of the narratives just rotate in the market. If you were around in 17 and 18, we had the DeFi coins back then, we had the NFT one, then we had the cats, then we have the apes now, right? There was a metaverse run too, metaverse land run back then as well. A lot of this just rotates, right? We got the same thing this cycle and we will again. But the main reason why stuff rotates is because these markets they have huge addressable value. So in the end, people just go like, oh yeah, why doesn't someone just make crypto for games? Well, yeah, they did that 4 years ago and the 4 years ago before that too. It just rotates back in then. So the main thing for games now, and if someone wants to make an app for automotive market or any sort of market, even for fitness, they're gonna have to focus less on how they can make money, like we discussed, on trading of NFTs or trading off their earn token or whatever, and instead on how are they actually extracting some sort of value from consumption, people actually spending money on it. And I'm not gonna name it, but we're currently looking into a FitFi app. It's making really good business model by selling so allowing your fitness data to go to insurance firms, and then insurance firms, there's all this stuff plugs well with data with insurance firms, and they already are getting you 25 to 50% discount depending on how many days you stay active, and then they get commissions from the insurance firms, which they feed back to you too. I think that business model, I saw it twice and in two different sectors, and it's working really well. I think this could be something that others are eventually going to start copying. But that doesn't mean FitFi is kind of dead, right? As a concept, it makes sense. It was just about what's the business model to put here. And I have pretty strong confidence, this business model is going to work quite well.
Yeah. I've got a friend who got one of the best smartwatches. I forget what the make was. Could have been Apple. And basically, they had a deal on where he had to run 8K a day, and then he got the watch for free. And he literally ran 8K every single day. Got himself in the best shape, and he hated running. He didn't do it for fitness purposes, but it got him really fit. And the effects of this, just to get a free watch, changed his entire life. So I think you've got a point there, because when I look at that, people are willing to change their sort of lifestyle, get in better shape. And if a project gets this right, I think, like you said before, we've seen a lot of GameFi, Metaverse. It's kind of just the start, isn't it? And we haven't seen nothing yet. So I'm hoping that BitFi does take off again, and they do it right this time. And I'm really interested in seeing new projects and new ideas. And what you said then is really interesting. And I think it's good for people as well, because it keeps them healthy and obviously prolongs the life and whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So that goes into Web3 side, where there's strong companies that are already out there that are having good business models, and now they're looking into tokenization, because to a large extent, crypto markets, even now, are often more liquid than most of the equity markets. Crypto is a great equalizer, right? If you're not in most of the highly liquid equity markets, you can still get access to a very liquid, financial ecosystem. Just come up with a good business model.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Do you want to answer any questions from the community before we wrap up? Have you got any sort of closing comments kind of thing? Is there anything else you want to cover?
Not quite. I think I would put a little plug for about a year now on our platform, daomaker.com. You do not need to be a token staker. You obviously get a lot of extreme benefits, but you don't need to be a token staker to participate in offerings anymore. A lot of people liked it. I think our user base absolutely exploded exponentially after that, because you don't have to commit up front. You become an active customer of the platform, and then if you feel, okay, I should just reap in the benefits that staking the token gets me, you can do that. So if anyone is basically, I see almost no reason for anyone to not be signed up, because you get a lot of very early stage opportunities, and there's zero upfront commitment for anything.
Yeah,
that's a big plug.
Let's talk more about let's talk more about the Launchpad, on how people can get involved. It's something I've completely forgot to ask, and it's probably one of the most important points now that you're on. So just go back a little bit. How can people get involved in the DAOMaker Launchpad and make the most and take advantage of these sales?
So the first point I'd say is there's absolutely zero cost to being on it, right? So anyone, if you like a project, often a lot of people want to opt in at that very moment. But we have to go through a little bit of compliance just because of the global laws. And then you are more likely to miss out, because you might, the pending delay on getting your account approved on the compliance side might take a bit. It's much better to sign up in advance. And when you like something, opt in then. Because there's no upfront cost for anything. There's never any loss point. That's one. Another part is how we run the system kind of changed. So we have a pretty strong anti-bot mechanism. Because there's no more stake, that opens up the issue that a lot of people just bought with 1,000 accounts to buy into stuff. But because we only allow people to opt in with a valid wallet that has a minimum on-chain balance of 250, that could be in anything, even stablecoins, Ether, whatever. There are not many bots that compete for this. So actually, not that tough. You're just competing against other humans. That's a big distinction between what we're running and certain other platforms are running. So once you're signed up, you don't have to worry. You just need $250 on your wallet, which is in your benefit. That cuts off all the bots. And for the sales that you like, it's very simple. Opt-in button. But there's a lot of research on every project that you can scroll through to learn what their business model is, like we went over in today's talk. And just click opt-in. That's literally it. There's a lot more opportunity in the sense that it used to be you get a ticket and it's like a lottery model we shifted it off, so it's more proportional now. So almost everyone can get some stake. And as the sales have gotten much bigger, 1 to 2 million, even if everyone gets a little bit, maybe instead of one person getting $1,000, everyone gets like 70 to $100. It's not too bad. Of course, there's the benefit, right? If you become a staker, your allocation sizes will go up. That's one of the things. So you opt in, you like it, you feel these sales that are happening are making you good returns, you can then scale up and become a staker. Otherwise, just, you can stay at free. There's no cost on that.
Love it. Obviously, you guys are literally the biggest launchpad by a mile. No, I don't think there's even a launchpad that's even half the size of DAOMaker, is there?
I'm not too sure. At least in the tokenized side of, crypto crowdfunding side, I don't think so.
Unbelievable. Listen, I am aware that it's really late where you are, and this has been an absolute pleasure having you on today. And we've recorded this. We're gonna put it onto YouTube and then expose it so a lot more people can listen to it. Are you happy with this, or is there anything else you want to cover before we sort of close it?
No, I think it was great. We touched on a lot of topics, and we just winged it, right? So I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best way, because if you script it, then it's more. It doesn't flow as well. So it's much. I think we always find it's much easier when we wing it, and it's even better when it flows well, because it tells people more about you, because you're able to cope with that and sort of adjust. And that, once again, as you were saying earlier, mixing and matching and sort of filling in, and it just shows a lot more character rather than being a robot. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of
Robots. It's proof of human.
Proof of human. I absolutely love that. Acid Cowboy, is there something you want to say? Sorry. Right. Okay. He's not answering. Okay.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Yeah.
Is something you want to ask, bro?
Yeah. Excellent spaces. Hatu, DAOMaker, you guys are killing it in an essential pillar for the Web3 space as a whole. I loved how you guys hit on the revenue model and really truly sustainable projects that is unfortunately has become sparse. Projects are out there, and you guys do help guide a lot of projects to that more sustainable model. So thanks for sharing with us. And the Gem Hunters, was curious on from a compliance standpoint, and obviously, there's a lot of moving parts and uncertainty. Dubai and Portugal are a lot more friendly as far as like on a compliance and like go-to market. I guess in the best way for projects that are gearing up to launch a tokenized model, whether they're launching on DAOMaker or just themselves. I guess in a simple term, what is the best way you see projects for fractionalizing or tokenizing, having all those concepts in mind from overall perspective, making sure that they're consulting lawyers, obviously, but I guess what are the main things to keep in mind you would have to say to projects in general when it comes to a compliance and regulatory standpoint that, for example, like I have a couple of people that are trying to do like syndicated DAOs and do like an angel list syndicate model where a bunch of people can invest, $3,000 to $10,000 and invest in equity in like a climate tech startup, stuff like that. I guess if you could speak to that a bit.
The thing with legal markets in crypto is there isn't so much precedent, right? And whenever it comes to legals, it's all about, I got to reference history, see what the court said. But we don't have that much of that. What we can see at the moment is two things. One, foundation-based distributed DAOs have not been pursued for feeding cash flow into their DAOs. So that's a mechanism for driving cash flow to a token. Foundation-based DAOs. A lot of the very large US-based companies are running in that format, and they're not having issues. And then the other flips I want to get to is the SEC has zero standard on what they qualify as security and not. It's all over the place. You did a token sale, you didn't do a token sale. You are a gas token, you're not a gas token. You have no product, you have a product. So if you look at the things that they've pursued, there is no track. So it's more to do so not with whether or not the SEC will come and sue me. It's more so if this went to court, would the SEC lose to me? That's all you have to actually align for. And for that, there's enough precedent that anything that doesn't guarantee you returns, and doesn't have a central control structure gets by without being a security. That's kind of what we're learning in the Ripple case too, right? They're basically about to win the SEC, most likely what it seems from court documentation, and that's what you have to align with.
Yeah, play the cards that are on the table and pray to God.
No, I would say on the pray to God part,
joking.
it's when you have to worry about the SEC coming after you, because they might. There's no track record on what they go after. It's all over the place. What just matters is once it goes to court, am I going to win them? And there's enough documentation. I'm not a lawyer, so I will not give you exact specifics.
Of course. Yeah,
There's enough.
not legal advice.
Exactly. No, not legal advice. There's enough precedent on what gets passed without problems in the U.S. court, even if the SEC comes after you. We have enough precedent now.
Facts. Congrats, man. You guys are killing it, leaders in the space. And if you or any of the team are going to be at Art Basel Week or Decentral Miami, I'll help throw a lot of events that week. And so we'll be popping it off globally too with Southeast Asia and hopefully Shaman and the Gem Hunters, and you guys can join next time.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone in the team is there, we definitely check it out. I appreciate that.
Love it. Listen, guys, it's been an absolute great spaces. Hatu, thank you once again for coming in with all your knowledge, all your graceful wisdom. And hopefully we'll get you guys on again, find out what you've been doing. Hopefully the market picks up. Once again, cheers everyone for coming.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate that, guys. Thank you for having me.
Epic spaces.
This was awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Hatu.
Bye.
Salute.